Hi, welcome to video number 6 in our series about how to build a membership platform, course membership platform. My name is Joshua, and in this video we're going to implement the login page and the login system in general for users to be able to authenticate themselves. Now, in the last video we set up everything about protected routes. So we have an area, the authenticated area, or where everything that goes into here is protected, and only people that are authenticated can access this. Now outside of this, we want our login page to be, because everybody needs to access that. So we're gonna create a new route for login. Now let's create a new folder, login. And in this folder, we're gonna create two more folders. First, actions, and another folder, components. And we're going to start out by writing a server action with which a user can log in. Now, let's create a new file. Let's call this login.ts. Use server. And now we need to import payload, get payload. From payload, we import config. From config, import cookies. From next headers, because we need this later to set the HTTP only cookie, and import customers from our custom types. Further, we are going to export a sync function login. This is our server action, and our server action takes in an email and password. This is going to be of type login params. So we need to create login params, interface login params, and login params have email string and password string. And all of this is going to something is wrong with the braces. Yeah, they need to go here. And this returns a login response. So we're gonna say promise login response. Now we also need to define the login response, which is going to be interface login response, but it's not going to return a customer. It's going to return a Boolean success, Boolean, and an not a token, but an error. Error, this is optional string. Of course, you can get more elaborate in error handling here, but for now, this is more than sufficient. And in here, first what we're gonna do is we're gonna get payload. Payload equals await get payload from our config. So we are gonna put simply our config into this. Then we try to log in, or we're gonna put this into a try catch block. Catch error. Let's do the error case first. We're gonna log, if something goes wrong, we're gonna log it, console.error login error and error. Here goes a comma and a semicolon, and return success fault, an error occurred. In here now, we are going to, why is this not working? Config, did you mean config? What did I write? What did I write here? Config. config, now it works. In here, we need to call the login function of payload. So we have a result, which is going to be a result object that we need to define. Result equals await payload dot login. Now we're gonna put the info in here later, but let's first define the result, which is going to be export type result. And this contains an expiration, or can contain expiration, number, token, which is a string, and a user, which is a customer. And yes, we get it here. And in the login, we simply need to pass the collection with which the user is going to log in and the data, which is going to be email and password. Now, we got the result, and the result should contain a token. We're going to check this here. If result.token, then we're fine. The user is logged in successfully, and we can set the HTTP only cookie. For this, we're gonna do get the cookies. So cookie store equals await cookies, and then we set it cookie store. Why is it so difficult to type? .set. Now we're gonna set payload token, comma, result.token, and in here we're gonna define the parameters. It's HTTP only, which is true. We're gonna set it secure in our production environment, and last but not least, set path to the base path, so it's accessible on our whole page, or no, it's accessible on every route. Now if this worked, we're gonna return success, and else we need to return failure. Return success, false, error, invalid password or email. Now this is our server action for logging in. Let's come to the login page itself. For this, in the login route, we're gonna create a login page, new file, page.tsx. And this by itself is going to be very simple. Let's create the page, export. No, let's first import React. Import React from React. And we're gonna export default async function page, which returns a promise of React element. Let's just do auto import this. And it needs payload. So const payload equals await get payload. Let's also get the auto import, which needs the config. Config, can we also auto import this? Nah, cannot. So let's manually get the config, import payload config. Perfect, we get it from there. And with this, no, wait. Actually, we don't need payload. We don't need payload here. 1 second. Let's get rid of this again, because we're gonna write a login form. No, this is not. We're gonna write a login form that is actually gonna be a component of this, because this is a server rendered route, or this is server rendered, and we need a login form with more functionality that is client rendered, and that is going to call our server action. So what we're going to do now is basically just put a placeholder here and create the login form, or the login component, which is going to go into components. Now let's create a new file, login form.tsx. In here we're going to use client and start writing the component. So export default function login form, does not take any parameters, it returns a React element. Let's auto import this React element. Let's also import React element, and this needs const. Are we first gonna define some states? Const is pending and set is pending. Oops, set is pending. Let's import use state. Then we also need a state for the errors. error, comma set error, which can be string or null, and we need the router, const router to redirect the user later on to the dashboard. Use router, let's use auto import as well, and this is going to be imported from navigation. So let's get started with the actual front-end part. Let's return a simple div, login form, and in our page we're gonna import login form. Perfect. Let's save all of this, remove the extra character, and let's look to log in. We should now see their login form. Perfect. And in the login form, what we need is a form. Now we also have to decide on how to style the whole project, and I would like to go for a white on black style. So before we actually do this form here, we're gonna go into our general layout and put a class name bg black and text white. Now what this is going to do is to invert all the colors, and now I would like to create the login form in here. And for this, the login form basically goes over the whole login page. Gonna type class name and give this container some style. It should be a flex layout. It should be the minimum height should be full height, min h full, and it should be a column layout. Let's position its content in the center, so justify center. This should be 5 for now, and also do items center. Now let's create the content in here. The first div is going to contain basically a headline, so log in. Let's see where this should be. Yes, in the center now. And we also need to make the page content complete, fill the whole screen. Class name h full, and now let's set it to screen. Perfect, log in. Now what we also can do is, in the future we know that we're going to include a header here, and this is now set to fill in the whole page. So if we're going to put a header here in the layout above that, it's going to shift everything. So let's take that already into account. Let's do height manually, and the height is going to be calc 100 VH units minus 3 rem, because our header is going to be 3 rem high. And yeah, it's going to be shifted a little bit to the top now, but once we have the header, everything is going to look fine. Now in login form, we have the login header. We're going to make this class name text 3XL, make it a bit bigger. What else shall we do? Let's add the form div, and in here we're gonna add the actual form class name. It's gonna also be a flex layout, flex call gap 2, and then let's define the individual form inputs. We're gonna start out with a div, and in this div we get a label, HTML for email, because this is going to be the email label. Let's autocomplete this, and then we put the actual input ID equals email email, type email, and let's see how this looks like. Yes, here it's now styled like crap, but we're gonna fix this. Let's put this also in a flex layout. Class name flex call gap 2. We can do here gap 4 because there should be a bigger gap between the other elements. No, actually let's make this gap 1. Oops, gap 1. Okay, and there should be a bigger distance between this as well. Gap 8. And now let's do the form input itself. We want this to be, what do we want it to be? Class name. Okay, we want all of this to be a certain width. So let's define the width of this whole container here. Class name. And it should, on small devices, be with full, and then, or it should be also margins on the sides should be automatic, mx auto, and on larger devices it should have a max width of small. And if we put this now on with full, it should have a nice width now that fits to our layout. Now copy this, and we need this for password. So password, the ID is now password, and the tile is also password, and we get password. Okay, so to style all our inputs the same, what we're gonna do is to create a class for text input into our styles.css, text input, and this is gonna apply Tailwind classes. The background is gonna be black, text white, and the border is gonna be border 1 and also border white. It's gonna have a very slight rounding and a padding of 2. And now if we take this text input, oh, what is going on here? Oh, actually border 1 does not exist, so we just said border. And in our login form we're gonna do text input, and again text input. Let's save all of this, and we have our text input. Now, are we happy with this and text input? So I like the text input a bit more if the border is not completely white, and we're also going to increase the padding, the gaps in here. So let's increase this back to gap 2. And yes, for now this is enough. Of course you can style it however you want. Now we actually need to implement the submit button and the submit form. For this we are going to create a separate submit component because we're going to reuse this all over the application, because this submit component or this submit button is going to include a loading animation, and we don't want to implement that again and again. Now let's go in our app. We want authenticated. We want components, because these components are only for our front end. If we would have component that we share between everything, I would create a component folder inside the app folder. But for this, let's create a loading button.tsx here. Or let's name this better, submit button. Rename submit button. Now our submit button function, export default function submit button does not take any parameters, but it's going to return a React element, React React element. Let's auto import this. Let's also import React, and it returns a button of type submit, and it has a class name, and the background is the submit button is actually going to be white, bg white, text black. It has, yes, rounded corners. The width is full. Let's keep this for now. Disabled. We need this. Let's first also implement a state for the status of the button. Then we are going to need a parameter loading and a state const loading. No. Is loading, set is loading, it's gonna take in. No, do we actually need to manage the state here? No, we don't. We just need the loading parameter, and this should be a boolean. And as such, let's quickly define it. Loading boolean, and now we can put our loading into disabled. And what we also want to add here is some kind of loading indicator. let's put submit, or in this case, let's also get a text string, and we display the text either here. No, we're always going to display this text and simply optionally have a loading indicator next to it. Text. For this loading indicator, we're going to use React icons. So let's import, or let's add React icons, pnpm e React icons. Let's have it installed. Perfect. And I already looked for some nice icon we can use here. Gonna use a outline loading 3/4. Yes, let's auto import this, and basically we can accept this because animate spin is from TailwindCSS, and if it's loading it's going to be shown, but yes, if it's loading it's going to be shown, and if it's not loading it's going to be hidden. Let's also add some space here. One space should be in between them, and now we can use our loading indicator button, login form, our submit button, loading is pending, text login. This should work now. Let's reload everything, and we have our login button. Now let's increase the padding to the top a little bit, or simply do MB4, so there's more space between login and password, maybe even more space. And yes, for now this is completely sufficient. Now let's come to the submit part, because we need to call somewhere our custom server action, and this is gonna be done in submit. So in the form, let's catch the event on submit. And we need to create an on submit form function handle submit, and this takes an event of form event and has HTML form event element. So this is also let's not jump ahead, and we want to directly import form event from React. Yes, so this works, and put handle submit into on submit, and in here we're gonna prevent defaults, because otherwise it's gonna reload the page. We're gonna set is pending on true, set error is null. So if we have an error from previously, if you click again on submit, it's gonna go away up. And we also need to display the errors. This we're going to do between the submit button and here. So if error, we're gonna simply display text red 500 and then the error string, because the error is going to be a string or no string. Now in here, we now need to get all of the data. So const form data equals new form data, and it's gonna take the current form in the form of event.currentTarget. Then we need the email, and the email is form data to get email as a string, and we need to get the password, which is basically the same but with password. And now we can call our server action. So the result of the server action we're gonna put into the results equals await login. Let's import this. It's auto imported, and pass on our email and password. Await, of course, the submit handle submit must be async. And after this, we can set is pending first of all to false, and we check if the result is successful. If so, we're gonna push to dashboard, and if not, we are gonna set the error to error. Of course, he does not want this here, so previously we defined a result type. Here export type result. Maybe let's log in. Let's rename this login result. Where did we here? Login result. Let's save this. And wait, is this correct? No. This is not the correct result, because we have. Do we store that at all? Here we return success and error, Yes, login response. This is what we need. So let's also export this login response. And form data result is login of type login response. And of course error might be null, so we need to at least set an error occurred if we for some reason don't get an error back from our server. Now let's save everything, and in theory after this we should be logged in and rerouted to our server. Previously, as you have seen, I already created a user in our customers collection. If you have not done so, please create one now, and let's log in with that user information. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, log in, and let's see what happens. Oh, this is not good. An error occurred. Perfect. Okay, so we got some errors. We're gonna fix them one by one. The first thing is that we forgot to include the name of the input. So name equals email and name equals password. Let's save this, and in our login server action, we need to actually write payload and not payload. I hope you did not make the same spelling mistake. But now, if we save everything, we go on here, put in our login data, login. We should be going to, yes, to the dashboard. Now, one more thing. I want the submit button to be a little bit nicer. Let's go to submit. And this should actually be absolutely positioned, or let's put this into a container div class name class. Okay, this is still gonna be block class name. That's gonna be the full height full absolute top 0 left 0 and flex item center justify center and have a margin. No, it's gonna be left, not completely there, but left 2. Now it should be absolutely positioned. If we log out, for now we can log out by deleting the HTTP only cookie here. If we just go back there, let's put in some fake data for it to it wants an email to see the loading. No, what happened now? 1 second. Okay, so the style is of course not going to work. We need to put relative in the parent. Oh, I added this for debugging. And if we now click on this, yes, this looks way better. Now let's try for a trial time. Joshua.schmidt@10xmedia.de, password 12345. Log in, and yes, we are logged in. The HTTP only token cookie is there, and we're gonna continue in the next video with creating user accounts and logging out. Now, I hope this was helpful to you. If you want to hear more from us, subscribe, stay tuned for the next videos. They are more or less going to appear daily now, at least for this series, although I cannot promise it. I'm currently traveling. Yes, basically daily. If you want to hear more about Payload, subscribe to our newsletter. The link is in the description. Sandra is going to send you out the latest and most important info or most important tips and tricks you need to know about Payload. See you the next time.